Hi, welcome to Digging for Truth, presented by Associates for Biblical Research. I'm your host, Henry Smith. Today, archaeologist Dr. Scott Stripling joins us to provide an update on the Shiloh excavations and an overview of the incredible and miraculous, in some ways, 2025 dig season. Scott, welcome back to Digging for Truth. Great to have you on, man.
Hey, Henry, I'm glad to be back in the USA and glad to be with you on Digging for Truth.
Amen. Well, there's a great story to tell about all that, and you're going to be telling that as we go through the program today. We're going to jump right into it. So 7 seasons of excavation at Shiloh now. I mean, that's a lot of buckets of dirt, a lot of buckets of dirt, as it were, or what we call goofas, actually, right? So what would you say are some of the overarching advancements that we've seen in our work so far?
When you look at the photos from 2016 and then compare those to where we are now, it's really staggering what has happened. In the process of excavating the northern slope at Shiloh, which is what I want to do, was to connect the work of the Danish on one end from the 1920s and 30s with the work that the Israelis had done in the 1980s on the other end of the northern slope, and open up the whole slope and connect this so we would really be able to understand what was going on. And in the process of doing that, we have revealed multiple time periods and walls on top of walls. And we think we have a pretty good understanding of it now through the stratigraphic analysis that we do each season. And the 3 main areas that we are working on and will continue for the next several years, probably 3 more seasons until we finish, is a monumental building, a gate complex just outside the northern perimeter wall, and then a favissa, or a massive bone deposit on the eastern edge of the site, northeastern edge of the site.
All right, so a lot of cool stuff in there. Monumental building. Tell us about that. Tell us about our interpretation so far. What's monumental about it?
Well, it's big. That's, why we call it a monumental building. It's really big, and it dates, we can now say with certainty that it was constructed in the late Bronze to B period. And that's really important. And that's new as of this season, that I'm confident to that level, because that's the tabernacle period. And that means it predates Iron One. And so the people who might believe there was a later Exodus or a later conquest, this would be a little bit challenging for that, because the tent is originally set up at Shiloh, according to Joshua 18:1. And then later there is a building built, as you can see in 1 Samuel chapter 3, and then in the Mishnah, the Zebayim 14:6 and Seder Olam 8, both tell us that a permanent building was built at Shiloh as well. And that's what it appears that we have. It's east-west, it's divided on 2-to-1 ratios, and it's full of important cultic material like miniature pomegranates, which is a motif of the tabernacle, murex shells from which they extracted the dye to make the priestly garments, and things like that. So it's pretty exciting. And you probably saw that the media there's been a feeding frenzy this week in the media, probably 30 or more articles about comments that I had made about this in a CBN interview, and now this is going kind of viral all over the world. Of course, everybody plays up the Ark of the Covenant angle, but it's true. The Ark of the Covenant did sit within the Holy of Holies at Shiloh for over 3 centuries. So I think the timing of the program is good, because there's a lot of interest in this right now.
Yeah, excellent. And we just want to mention that you and I have done multiple episodes of Digging for Truth on Shiloh, and we have that archive on our YouTube channel, and people can go there if they want to. They could just spend hours learning about all of the things that we're talking about. So a lot of excellent stuff with that. So one of the things too here is the city gate, right? Previous researchers, they've theorized that the gate would have been on the south part of the site. But you have some reasons to think that may not be the case. Tell us about that. Tell us what we see from what we've uncovered.
Well, it never really resonated with me. I didn't argue that there couldn't have been a gate on the south, because it is a more gradual slope, that made some sense. but there's no evidence that that's come to light on the south, even though there have been extensive excavations there. So it's possible that, later builders completely removed the earlier Bronze Age, Iron Age gate. But I thought, since the water source is north of the city, 1 kilometer north down the Wadi, that it would make sense that either the main gate or at least a secondary gate, what we sometimes call a postern gate, would be on the north. And so it sure enough, only in our second season of excavation, we began to see some evidence of that. A wall, and by the way, that you were helping supervise, provided us a clue that there was no glacis in this area. Then we saw an opening in the wall in that area. I was talking with Lane Rittmeyer this week, and he reminded me that he had suggested that early on when we began to see that there was going to be evidence of a gate. And now, of course, we have extensive evidence of that.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I supervised that square and we did that work on that wall, at that moment in time, it just looked very random and kind of like, why is it here? What's it for? Well, sometimes it takes years for us to get to a place to really understand, right? We have to be patient and painstaking in the uncovering of the evidence. Maybe you could talk about that a little bit. It's not a job for the impatient. Put it that way.
No, that's right. We have protocols that are established that sort of force us to be methodical, to collect data that may not mean anything to us now, but it probably will later, because it'll be several seasons working in an area until we can draw our cross sections and understand how each locus relates to a stratum and how that stratum relates into our overall stratigraphy of the site, which is super important, because once we can get a clearly dated stratum, then we can do relative dating from there. Obviously what's below it is older and what's above it is more recent.
Yeah, one other overview too, I think that we want to cover here, and we did a whole episode on this too, so we want to point people to this for the details, is the remarkable favissa. But for audience members who may just be tuning in maybe for the first time or just getting acquainted with what we do, what is a favissa and what do we know from what we've discovered?
It's a fun word, and I can tell you just like saying favissa.
I do like saying it. I admit it.
I do too. I like excavating it. A favissa is a sacred deposit, and they are associated always with temples. And so Ross Kletter, who's a well-known scholar, has established a six-fold criterion. That's what we're using is Kletter's criteria to determine, is this truly a favissa? Because you could just have like a foundation deposit or a feast deposit, like bones from a feast or something like this. But to be a favissa, it's going to have to meet all six of these. And one of them is there's going to have to be a temple nearby. So here we have this very large amount, tens of thousands of animal bones. And as of this summer, I can tell you that within the core favissa, it's 99.9% kosher. And that's mind-boggling, because even at Israelite sites that we know it's an Israelite site, we usually say it's 99-1. Non-Israelite sites, like Israelite as opposed to Canaanite, 96-4, the faunal comparisons, kosher to non-kosher. But within our favissa, we're talking 99.9. And so the few bones that aren't are probably just contamination, within there. So you have these core bones, these kosher bones. Mixed in with them are pieces of late Bronze Age pottery, not utilitarian ware like cooking pots and storage jars, but cultic things like chalices and goblets and lamps and bowls. And then mixed in with that, we're finding silver and gold. And so the three, which are special offerings, and this is due east of the monumental building, about 35 meters to the east of it. So the original favissa probably began to form when the tabernacle tent was at Shiloh. Once it was replaced, then we can actually see a direct path due east to this favissa.
Yeah, so some of what you've described, we were already discussing and pointing to, and now the 2025 season seems to have built even more of a picture and confidence of these identifications being correct. And we're going to explore more of that, Scott, right after this break.
Digging for Truth is produced and recorded in the studios of Lighthouse TV. Positively different.
Hi, welcome back to Digging for Truth. I'm here with Dr. Scott Stripling, a friend of ABR, an ABR staff member, and archaeologist. All right, Scott, we were talking about, the broad picture of the discoveries at Shiloh. Now maybe we want to focus a little bit more on some specifics of the 2025 season. What's new and exciting, Scott?
Well, as we uncover new walls, and that's always happening, one of the main goals that we had for the season, probably the most important goal, was to find the portion of the monumental building that is in Area K, because we have it fully exposed in Area H. But to the east in Area K, we have one wall so far. And so we needed to extend that wall and then find the southern wall. And so we did make tremendous progress toward that. And we think that we do have the corner now, the northeast corner of the building of the tabernacle. So it's just a big building, and it's preserved to an amazingly high level. So it's taking longer than we expected to fully excavate it. We're really fortunate that Tim Lopez has been supervising this area from the beginning, has a great handle on it. Jordan McClinton has been supervising the favissa from the beginning. Mark Hassler has been supervising the gate area from the beginning. So we've got a lot of continuity, and I think we know what we're doing. But in the process of revealing the architecture, we have all of these amazing small finds that come to light.
Yeah, and those three gentlemen that you mentioned, as part of the mission of ABR, is to develop a future generation of specialists and archaeologists as well. Something under your leadership. That's one of our visionary goals. When we're long gone, we want the work to continue on, right, Scott? Yeah. So maybe something we haven't asked you this before, and this is a great question that you asked me to ask, and that is, what does a typical day look like for you as the director of the excavations? I mean, do you just kind of just show up at 9 o'clock and tell people what to do? Is that how it works?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I wake up at 3:50, 10 minutes until 4 is when my alarm goes off, and I throw on my clothes and stumble around the room and head down to breakfast. And I force myself to eat more than I want, because I don't really have an appetite at that time, but I know that I'm going to be hungry soon enough. And so I force down 3 fried eggs. I have to train the staff finally how to cook eggs over easy, and a couple of pieces of toast with peanut butter and jelly on them, and then a little bit of fruit and cereal, coffee and tea, and then my vitamins and other things. And boom, I'm back up to the room to return a couple of quick emails, brush my teeth, gather my stuff, and then at 4:45 we start loading the bus. And so I pull the van out first so I don't get trapped in behind the bus, because I drive a 9-passenger van that we have on the site at all times. And so we begin to load, and we get our count by probably 10 minutes later. We know exactly who's on board the bus, who's on board the van. And at 4:59, we are wheels up, and it takes us about 30 to 35 minutes to get to Shiloh. There's two reasons that we leave super early in the morning. It's not just that I'm sadistic. Number one, that might be part of it, but number one, we beat the traffic, and so we get there faster. Number two, it's cool, the temperature, and so we're beating the heat. And this year, we really did not have heat like we've had. And you can remember some really, really hot summers with me, but this summer, boy, it was nice weather. So we're there. We begin to work by 5:45. We've got to get everyone up the hill and give people a chance to go to the bathroom and get situated. But certainly by 6 o'clock, excavation is in full gear, and we're following our protocols. Then I am personally circulating around the site, checking on things, following up with square supervisors and area supervisors about things that I'd asked them about or that I want their feedback on. And then I'm helping them move things as well. So as I'm moving around the site, there may be boulders that need to be rolled out, or, I'm trying to get a little exercise while I'm there as well. At 8 o'clock, we read pottery from the previous day. So it was washed at the end of the previous day. And so that usually takes us an hour and a half or 2 hours to process all of our pottery and finds from the previous day. And then I back and making a quick check on things again. And in between there, we may have members of the media showing up. We may have VIP groups that are showing up. So I may have to give interviews or talk to groups, deal with problems. Somebody has an issue or an injury, and all these things along the way. But lunch is at 10:30. Then we're back to work at 11 until 1. And by that point, it is warming up. And so we have our sunscreens up. And so I'm continuing the same process that I've been going on in the morning. Sometimes I have specialists on site, our ceramic typologist or our numismatist or our botanist. And so I'm then meeting with those people, and we're reviewing the results of our analysis of the biofinds or the zooarchaeological finds and so forth. And or the Antiquities Authority may be coming by, and I need to schmooze and talk with them. We wash pottery from 1 to 1:30, and then we are wheels up heading back to Jerusalem at 2. Back in Jerusalem probably by 3, we'll arrive there. And every other day we then read our objects. And the volunteers love to gather around and watch as we're analyzing all these really interesting objects like lamp molds and beads and coins and tools and arrowheads and things like that. Super interesting. And then volunteers are free. Supervisors will have some paperwork to do and meetings to attend. We have a meeting then at about 5:30, and it lasts for 45 minutes. And we'll either have a short lecture, we'll review the findings with everybody from the last couple of days. And the dinner is right out immediately after that at 6:15. And so once people eat, some of them are heading straight to bed because they know they've got to repeat that process. Others are going to just socialize for a little bit before they hit the hay for the next day.
That's fantastic. Great overview. And I should interject here by saying, Scott, that your leadership is challenging, not sadistic at all. But if people can come and volunteer, they need no experience. But if you try to get on the bus at 5:01, you'll be left at the hotel. We do have to mention that that's the case, right? So we have to run a tight ship. Is that right, sir?
Yeah. If you're not there at 4:59, we'll assume that you changed your mind and you have a tummy ache or something and you're not going that day. We have hundreds of people and it's a big operation. We just simply can't hold the bus for someone who's not punctual.
Yeah. But it's a great experience, and we invite people. DigShiloh.org if you want to come and experience this incredible experience at Shiloh in our next dig season. Well, we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back after this message. Are you interested in digging even deeper for the truth? Then please visit the ABR website at BibleArchaeology.org and click on Bookstore. There you'll find a wide variety of resources designed to defend the Christian faith. Archaeology, apologetics, the text of Scripture, creation evolution, even study Bibles. You can pick up the perfect gift for the sincere seeker or fellow Christian. Visit Bible Archaeology and click on Bookstore today. Hi, welcome back to Digging for Truth. We're talking about the Shiloh excavations with Dr. Scott Stripling. Okay, Scott, the 2025 season was really remarkable in many ways, of course, with the archaeology, but we had a very unique set of circumstances. We actually had a war break out while our people were there in Israel. And obviously, we took that extremely seriously, but I'd like you to tell the story behind what happened and what the Lord did in the midst of all that.
Well, not only did we have a war breakout, it was a war within a war. Okay, so we already knew that there was a war going on, and we made the decision to go. So people who came, 135 registered volunteers, they knew, and they're pretty thick-skinned people, they knew they were coming into a war zone. We'd done our due diligence. We felt like we had safety protocols in place for our team and they would be fine. But it was the second war that broke out, the one with Iran, that became such a challenge. And the Friday of week 4, which is the last actual dig day, because in week 5, we mainly do conservation and restoration work and processing of finds, things like that. And we have a saying that there's always something big that happens on the last day. Well, it was big this year. because at about 3 in the morning, sirens began to go off all over Jerusalem, and people's phones started blowing up. And it's essentially there were emergency alert warnings that there was an attack that was imminent and that war was breaking out with Iran. And you know how it is in today's world, information is instantaneous. People are immediately getting news that their flights are canceled, and you know, warnings that they should shelter in place and not leave and not do things. And I got a message from our dear friend at our hotel, our manager, who's a dear friend of mine, encouraging me not to leave the hotel that day and that we should stay in bunkers and that it was a dangerous situation. I had to process all this real quickly, and I just really felt like the Lord was saying to me, lead from faith, not from fear. And so at breakfast that morning, I talked with our team and I said, I know you guys know what's going on. We're not sheltering in place. Anyone who wants to, you can, and please do. This is a judgment-free zone. I'm not pressuring anyone to do anything, but in my opinion, I think it's in the best mental and spiritual health interest of our team to stay in our routine. And so, assuming that the Antiquities Authority will let us go and assuming we can get to the checkpoints and all that we need to do, then we're going to work today and we're going to work all this out. And it caught us by surprise, but it didn't catch God by surprise.
Yeah.
And I think about that verse that he who watches over Israel neither sleeps nor does he slumber. And while we were sleeping, God was seated on the throne. He wasn't even leaning, had it all under control, and then it was all going to work for good. And, you know, every single member of the team came and they all felt like this sense of solidarity. But I could see concern about practical matters in people's faces. And I'm really glad that we did that, because I think it would have been very hard on people mentally just to sort of shelter in place and be in a bunker. I thought it was great that we did what we did. But I could tell it was weighing on people, like financially, how am I going to handle this? I could be in Israel for 7 to 10 more days, and there's extra hotel, and then my flight changes, and you know, it could be thousands of dollars. And by lunchtime, which for us is 10:30 in the morning, by lunchtime that morning, a generous donor had already come forward and given $25,000 with a pledge for more. And my intent was to start a GoFundMe campaign, also a crowdfunding campaign. And so with those two together at lunchtime, I was able to just update everybody and compliment them on how great they were doing. And then just say, look, in addition to this, ABR is going to be able to cover 100% of your costs that you incur beyond what you would have otherwise incurred. So flight changes, extra days, extra nights, whatever this turns out being. So be at peace. And I could just see this lift off of people, this concern, you know, the practical level. If you don't have that money, you don't have that money. And you've got students and, you know, other people that just were in a situation they didn't know what to do. But within just a few hours, we had all tuned in to this faith, and we saw the provision of God already coming to place. And then over the next few days, we began to figure out a plan to get everybody out. And by the second day, as a matter of fact, I had narrowed it down, because Amman, Jordan was the most logical thing because it's right across the river. But they were opening and closing the airports. The Israeli airport was shut down for sure. No idea when it would open. I didn't want to send people to Amman and have them stranded there, because that would be far worse than being stranded in our comfortable setting in Jerusalem where we were. Cyprus was another option because they were flying out of Larnaca, but then we had to charter a boat to get there, and that was kind of a tricky situation. Ultimately, that's what the Israeli government, through Ambassador Huckabee's coordination, ended up doing, was getting some people out through Cyprus. But it became clear to me that Egypt was the answer. Cairo was flying, not shutting down. All the airlines were flying out of Cairo. They weren't canceling any flights. The flights were inexpensive. And our company, Net Tours, that we work with, they have offices both in Israel and in Egypt. And so I knew we could get a bus down to the border, about 3.5 hours, maybe 2 hours to cross the border, have another net bus with our name on it waiting for us when we got across, and then make an 11-hour drive from there to Cairo and see some really incredible stuff. I mean, to be able to see the Sinai and the desert and have lunch at Nueva Beach and see part of Egypt that most people had never seen, that I'd never seen that part of Egypt. And I felt like, you remember when the angel Gabriel appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, get out through Egypt,
Yeah,
go to Egypt now. I just felt
yeah,
like that's what the Lord was showing us. And so the next day we had it set up for our first wave to go out, 35 people in this first wave. And it worked like a charm. I mean, went off like clockwork, and everybody had a great experience. The hotel was 10 minutes from the airport, and we were able to cover costs and transfers and all of that stuff. And so then the next day I had a second wave going out. Well, by that point other groups had heard that we had a way out, because there were a lot of people trapped in Israel, Henry, and other ministries, other groups, and they began to reach out like, can y'all help us get out? Can we go with you? And so the next day I organized a group with some ABR and a lot of people from other groups who got out the same way. Then I planned a final group, which would go out on Saturday. So that would give us a few days to finish the work that we need to do as far as analysis and storing things and so forth. And then I personally led that group, and I told everybody to make their plane reservations for Monday. We travel on Saturday and arrive on Saturday night, and Sunday I'm going to take all of you guys to the pyramids and to the New Egyptian Museum, and we're going to turn a negative into a positive. And I mean, there was a real enthusiasm at this point, because
yeah,
most
yeah, yeah.
people thought they'd get a chance to see that. And that's exactly what we did. So we arrived Saturday night. Sunday, we were tourists in Cairo. And then everybody flew out. And once everybody was on their planes, then I boarded my plane and headed home as well. It was sort of what I call a reverse exodus.
Yes, yes. Well, Scott, it's really an incredible story, and I was not with you, but I was here in the States, and I got to experience from a distance your leadership, the faithfulness of God, and the incredible courage and faithfulness of God's people who come and serve with us. It's really a remarkable testimony. And I want to thank you for that, and thank you for sharing that story. We thought it was really important that our listeners, our audience, our supporters know that we operate here by faith. And so thank you so much, Scott. Great having you on the show today.
Thank you, brother.
Friends, thank you for watching Digging for Truth. We'd love to have you on the next season for the Shiloh excavations. We can't promise what's going to happen in the future, but we know that God is with us and continues to be so. And you've heard the story of his faithfulness. We thank you for your support, your prayers, and your watching Digging for Truth, and we hope you have a great day.